All right, this will work. We'll get started here in just 1 second. Do you have a camera on your end?
Not really. My camera's busted.
Ah, okay. So 1 second. Do you have a camera on your end? All right. No, I just put live on YouTube, and that was staging. Sorry. All right, we are live on YouTube. I am posting into the group now that the interview is streaming on YouTube.
Some quick thinking, Roger.
Might affect engagement, but it's being recorded. So, all right. Hello, everyone. This is Roger with Totally Crypto, and we are getting ready to get started with our special guest this week. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we are up and running. Join us on YouTube if you have questions. Okay. How are you doing today, sir?
I am terrific. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. I really appreciate you doing this interview for our people. We've got 42,000 members in Totally Crypto and growing every day, and they're always eager to hear about amazing projects. We've really got an obsession with blockchain. We've got an obsession with solving the world's problems using blockchain. And I know in the previous conversations that we've had, you've got some great insight into how you're going to bring a product to market that is really going to create good in the world and create change that is needed to improve the lives of everyday people. So I wanted to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your project, Kora Network.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for the amazing opportunity and thanks for having me. So, what Kora was about to begin with, and what it still is about, is equal access to financial services. And we kind of thought about this for a while, and to us, it kind of boils down to an economic problem in that how can we make it cheap enough? How can we make the cost to serve low enough to make it profitable to provide financial services to as many people as possible? And so that's really what Kora has become. It's become essentially an engine for sustainable growth. What the Kora blockchain network itself is essentially an open access banking infrastructure, which has everything for identity and CRMs and KYC and AML and money transfer and lending and all the stuff you would need to basically run a bank. And all that's running on the blockchain, on the Kora blockchain. We'll let users access the blockchain without internet by going through telecom networks. And you can build all kinds of really cool groups and services on top of that. So that's basically what Kora is.
No, I like that. I know we're going to dive in deeper to some of that. One of the questions that came from our group in preparation for this call is, it appears that your mission is to serve the unbanked. How do you plan to get project adoption?
Yeah, so we operate on there's two ways to think about that. One is that, from a purely business perspective, from a purely customer acquisition perspective, we operate a B2B2C model where we target, co-ops, credit unions, trade unions, basically community groups. And these usually have hundreds of thousands of users, and they usually already have the KYC data. They usually have built trust inside the community. They understand the problems that need to be solved. So by working with them, they really help us scale, and we don't need to literally sign up all 2 billion unbanked one by one. From a access perspective, there's plenty of projects out there that want to bank the unbanked, but so many of them require a smartphone, and so many of them require internet, and which to me is absurd. It's like, that in itself is a barrier. It's a huge barrier. It's incredibly exclusionary. And so we don't require a smartphone. We can work on any, $5 Nokia brick, and we go through telecom networks. We don't need internet. So those are the two main mechanisms for creating universal access.
And that's interesting, because one of the things that came up when we were having a conversation with the members of Totally Crypto about this project is that on the surface, it does look like you are in a very saturated market, that there's a lot of people trying to solve this specific problem. And one of the names that comes to mind is XRP, when it comes to cross-border payments or those types of transactions that are easily done on the blockchain. And when I talked to you about that, you actually had interesting feedback on that about how you're approaching this from a competitive nature standpoint. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so people say we have competitors, which is always news to me because they don't really see them, in the places we operate. I mean, like who competes with us? Like banks, because the people we serve are unbanked. So the banks chose not to bank these people. So we don't really consider them our competitors. Um, you know, like a lot of projects that claim to be solving financial inclusion. You need a smartphone, and in fact, let's be honest, a lot of them boil down to buy my token, the problem will go away. In areas we operate in, of all the issues involved with building a blockchain company, demand has been actually the lowest on our list because there's just like so much need for low cost financial services everywhere we go. Because it's a market with no competition because no one wants to serve these people because it's not profitable. So if there is competition, I haven't really seen much of it. XRP is one of our partners, or rather Ripple Labs is one of our partners. Stellar is one of our partners. They just provide liquidity when we go and want to go cross border. We really focus on XRP and Stellar. Neither are licensed operators. Ripple gateways, Stellar anchors. These are usually run by licensed operators, and we are either operating anchors or partnering with anchors and extending that access out to the last mile. So that is where we fit inside that ecosystem.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And it's important for people to understand that when the audience is people that are being underserved by the traditional servers to that market, that creates an opportunity if you can figure out how to serve them. You mentioned that like in the areas that you're serving, and that was one of the questions that came up, like where are you serving individuals and where do you plan to serve individuals from a geographical location perspective, say in the first year of your business?
Yeah, so we're currently operational in Nigeria. We have about 300 users there, but that's part of a co-op with 25,000 people. We hope to scale up to them by end of 2018. And we're providing identity, providing payments, and providing cash out and fiat. But we don't expect to scale too much in Nigeria, mostly because of the regulatory landscape there. So the next project for us is Peru. We're working with a high-end coffee exporter, which is really interesting because in terms of like user numbers, it's quite low actually. But in terms of like dollar amounts per payment, it's very high. Like people get paid like $1 million per payment. It just takes 4 years to get paid because coffee takes a really long time to grow. But probably the most interesting project coming up in the next 12 months is in Bangladesh. And so we're with a co-op bank there. They are licensed. They can provide any kind of financial services out there so long as it's only to their members. And they've been around for 17 years and everything's being done on paper. That's actually why we first engaged with them. They said, hey, can you put all these systems on a blockchain so we don't have to spend 3 or 4 months collating everything when we audit every year? And we really have extended a long way from there to do something really cool with them. So they're actually essentially doing an equity offering. Their co-op, they can sell more shares. So they're selling more shares to overseas Bangladeshis and using that money to create a commodities exchange. And so this co-op, they have warehousing capabilities, they have logistics, they have a network of distributors. What they do is their members, they grow the produce, they keep it in a warehouse, and the members get paid immediately. And then the co-op, which they warehouse it, they create futures contracts, and they sell those contracts to other people, so they get that risk off their books immediately as well. And then it's the counterparty is usually distributors. And then what they do is they essentially rent the warehousing and then they wait like 8 or 12 weeks when this particular produce is out of the market and the price has risen, sometimes as much as 2 or 3x as much as it was when it was flooding the market. And then the distributors get the produce at that point and they go sell it for like a much higher profit. And so it's a nice way to like use a shared resource to distribute profit throughout the value chain. And we're building all of this for them.
And it's interesting because you're talking about things that you are doing today, which I think is really important to the people that are listening, where a lot of times when you talk to people in this space, they're talking about what they're going to do in the future, which you guys have got a lot of stuff you're going to do in the future too, but it's important to understand that you're doing things today. Now, with that, it does on your roadmap mention, once we get a little bit further out, Kora Network 2.0. Can you tell me a little bit about the big vision for your project?
Yeah, we are doing stuff today. Funny story actually about ICOs. I was in Hong Kong for Token 2049. And so I was at the conference at 8, went partying until midnight, and then on call till 6 a.m. because we are still operating a company here. But so Kora 2.0, right now in Nigeria, it's running on a tiny testnet. We expect the mainnet will be up by end of year. I think it's probably going to be like 4 or 6 months. But Core 2.0 is something we're going to be building out over the next 2 or 3 years at least. Because if you think about, first of all, every environment is a little bit different, and there's a lot of customization needed to really provide something that reaches the level of flexibility we would need. But also, financial services is really broad, So we're doing essentially in Bangladesh, we're doing cross-border payments, doing identity, we're doing money transfer. So one other really cool thing, kind of a side project that they're also doing, is the co-op is providing vouchers, which corresponds to a basic basket of goods. It's kind of like a universal basic standard of living that they're implementing for their members, which is also really cool. And that's a really easy use case for the blockchain. But, another really big thing is insurance. Another big one is credit history. There's just so many, other kinds of derivatives like options, forward contracts. There's so many ways that financial services can help people. And we need to keep building it out, keep making the network more scalable, more secure. It's going to be at least a few years before we really reach where we want to be, and that's Core 2.0.
Yeah, and I like that big vision because I think our group would totally agree that these are problems that need to be solved. And a lot of us are sick of hearing about the dreamers and the visionaries that just don't have a foundation for success or a foundation for business, where you do, and you're just continuing to push forward. Now, you did mention the mainnet. And in your white paper, it talks about you're going to be using delegated proof of stake, which not everybody's going to understand. But can you talk a little bit about why you chose to do a delegated proof of stake and what that actually means for token holders in the future?
Yeah, so it was a very simple decision for us. It's that we operate in areas where electricity can be intermittent. We operate in a way which requires tremendous scale. And so proof of work is not really an option. And the only really option out there that's been battle tested is delegated proof of stake. So, maybe not many people know DPoS, but some people should know BitShares, should know Steemit, should know ARC, Lisk, EOS, Cosmos. These are all DPoS systems, Attorney. These are all DPoS systems. BitShares and Steemit have been running for many years. And Graphene, which is the underlying engine for those two, has been around for like 2012. It's been around for quite some time. And so it's a pretty battle-tested algorithm. And it's a really very simple trick. There are certain kinds of consensus Byzantine fault-tolerant algorithms that are very fast, so long as you're within a small set of validators. And so obviously, if you just choose them, you have a centralized system. So the trick for DPoS is you decentralize the selection of these validators. So they have to compete to win approval from the community to have the privilege and responsibility of committing blocks. And the way you get that approval is every holder of the native cryptocurrency, of the native token, gets one vote. And so the community gets to elect the blocks, the block producers. By holding a token, you become an essential part of the governance and operation of the network. And in return for that responsibility, token holders can get a share of the transaction fees and a share of the block rewards. So that's really DPoS in a nutshell. Yeah, and then you also get really fast block times.
Yeah, and you know what? And for me, I think that this is a big part about where we're going is getting rid of that tremendous need for electricity while also giving holders an opportunity to, I don't want to say profit from, but I do want to emphasize the fact that there's a benefit to owning these coins and being part of that mainnet in order to allow for these transactions to happen. There's no other way around saying it, but that's a really important part of a good investment for people.
Absolutely. It's an ecosystem.
It is. Okay. We've discussed this a little bit. In fact, I think we talked for a while about this. The recent market conditions have been really rough, just in the overall market, but specifically in the token market, in the post-ICO market. How do you plan to not follow that trend?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I can't promise where our price is going to be. All I can promise is that we're trying to build a real business, and that business is inseparable from our blockchain. That's kind of all I can say, really. I will say that it's been a very challenging market for us too.
Yeah, just so there's no problems with that. I think that when I look at it from the perspective of using a mainnet, having an actual business, having real partners, having a product to market, and having a great roadmap and scalability in your business that solves a real world problem that needs to be solved and needs to be solved by blockchain is really the best answer to that question. And I'll say it so that you don't have to. And then that creates viability for a project. And in a world where 81% of projects aren't viable, I'd love to be involved in that 19% that have some semblance of an infrastructure that I think is viable over the long term.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Roger. I appreciate it.
No problem. My last name is Brian. Everybody calls me that. You know what? These were some great questions. I think I skipped over one. You have some great partners already. Can you tell us a little bit about who some of those are?
Oh boy. So where to start? So just in Nigeria, even to get deployed, our farming partner is Thrive Agric. They're the aggregator with 25,000 farmers. They're actually really cool. I think they went through Y Combinator. We work with a local telecom aggregator that gets all 30 telecoms in Nigeria with one API. We work with, they're called Africa's Talking. We work with a banking provider. So they're an agency bank, which means that they don't really have branches. They just have agents. They're called VTN, and they also do a lot of other stuff too. They've been great. Like globally, I know there's 3 African banks. Unfortunately, can't disclose their names yet, but they operate in pretty much, their license is pretty much every African country. So as far as like payments in and out of Africa, we have licensed partners for that, which could be really fun coming up. In Peru, we work with partners, obviously coffee exporters. We work with a local payments network, so we don't have to go and get integrated with all the MMOs. We are doing pilots or are in discussions to do pilots with the UN as well as the World Bank. Those are going to take a while to get started. Obviously, in Bangladesh, we have a licensed partner. They are licensed to any kind of financial services, so long as only offered to the members of the co-op. So one really cool partner that we have, which has been really crucial to us, has been Suramitsu. So I don't know how many people know Suramitsu. They're a pretty old school blockchain development firm. They developed Hyperledger Iroha, and that's a software framework used by the Central Bank of Cambodia, among other parties. And obviously, we're very much indebted to our law firm, Morrison Forster, our accounting firm, PwC. Ultimately, this is a project where from the ground up, we designed it to be an inclusive financial system. And we try to live that by that ethos, obviously with XRP and with Stellar, to try to fit as many people into our ecosystem and link them together as possible. And that's really helped us as well in really refining and sharpening what the unique value prop that we bring to the table is.
I love that. And I really appreciate you taking the time to answer some questions from our group. Do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share with everyone?
Last thoughts. I would say that, there's a quote I love, which is that people tend to overpredict impact in 2 years, but underpredict in 10 years. I would say, I'm really excited for 2018, but I wouldn't be surprised if we deliver something that doesn't look like what I think we'll deliver right now, simply because there's a lot of complexity in the market that we might not understand as we run into it. But I think in 10 years, even if it's not us, of course, I hope it's us, but I think some solution like Kora will appear and will be used by almost everyone. I think at some point, financial services will be almost like electricity or water. We just turn it on and you don't think about it. The ultimate dream for Kora is someday where it becomes the ultimate option of last resort, where if you don't have PayPal, don't JP Morgan, don't have anyone, you say, oh, I can just use Kora to send money. Oh, I can just use Kora to prove who I am, or whatever. I think that is really the goal. I think that we know that blockchain dramatically reduces cost in this regard, and we just see economics is like water; it flows down to the path of lowest resistance. And hopefully it's us. Obviously, we're working very hard to work down this road, but we'll see. I think in 2 years, we'll have some really cool betas, but in 10 years, I think we're looking at a very different financial system.
I completely agree. Again, I really appreciate your time. Sorry for the technical difficulties right off the bat. Everyone that's watching this video, I'm Roger from Totally Crypto. There's a link below if you want to take advantage of some free training or come over to the Totally Crypto group and join the conversation. We're always looking to talk to amazing founders and bring you the best projects that are on the market today. So I appreciate everyone. If you'll hang out for 1 second, I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream and we'll go from there. Hold on 1 second.
Sounds good.